Outlook for email, maybe Zoom or Teams for video calls, Google Analytics for tracking, Salesforce for customers. These systems, they often don't talk to each other smoothly, do they? Businesses spend huge amounts of time and money just on integration. That friction is the cost.
And that friction, that's the very problem ONPASSIVE claims it's here to solve.
Precisely. They're trying to cover all these critical business needs under one single unified umbrella. That's the sheer breadth of the ambition we talked about. If they pull it off, that level of centralization where all the data lives in one place, all the tools are designed to work together perfectly, that's the game changer they're aiming for.
And the actual mechanism for this ambitious centralization, is what they call the ONPASSIVE ecosystem, the OES. Sources describe it as like the central nervous system, or a marketplace, a hub maybe. It manages access to all the individual tools.
Yeah, think of it as the operating system for their entire product suite. For you, the user, the OES is supposedly where you handle everything. Access, dashboard, subscriptions, picking your favorite tools for quick access. The idea is simple. Log into the OES once and boom, OMail, OConnect, OTracker, ODesk, they're all instantly talking to each other. Same user profile, same data structure. Theoretically.
Okay, but hold on. I think this is where we need to bring in that comparison point. We have established players, right? Microsoft has its 365 suite. Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, they integrate pretty well. So why would the OES structure be fundamentally different or, better?
That is the critical question. Look at Microsoft. Many of their tools, like Teams or SharePoint, they were developed separately or acquired, right? Then bolted together later. Now, the integration is often good, sometimes excellent, but architecturally, it still needs workarounds. The claim ONPASSIVE is making, and this is the theoretical edge, is that their system is built from day one, ground up, on a singular, unified data architecture.
Meaning, like, one database, one identity layer for everything.
Yes, exactly. Imagine the difference between building a city where, every utility company digs up the streets whenever they want, versus planning a city where electricity, water, internet, and it's all laid down together from the start. This theoretical single architecture means data sharing should be frictionless. A lead from ONET pops up instantly in ODesk, which feeds into OTracker analytics. Zero friction. That efficiency bet, the sheer convenience of the all-in-one approach, that's their central differentiator. That's what they hope convinces businesses to ditch their specialized tools. Okay, so now we need to shift gears from that really ambitious concept to, well, the concrete stuff. To see if that grand vision is viable, we have to look at the products they've reportedly released. The ones accessible now through the OES. These are the foundational tools. They give us a tangible baseline, something real to assess their execution on.
Right, the stuff you can actually try out today. Let's start with maybe the most basic, but also the most crucial communication tool, OMail. So an AI-enhanced email platform. What does that actually do? Are we just talking standard features here, or is this genuinely trying to revolutionize email?
Well, they're aiming higher than just basic. The sources definitely push the AI enhancements. But even look at the baseline features they're targeting. OMail needs robust calendaring, right? Integrated properly. Standard for Outlook, Gmail. But also seamless sync offline modes across multiple devices. And crucially, advanced filtering. Sources specifically highlight sophisticated anti-spam and, interestingly, unsolicited email tracking.
Unsolicited email tracking. And that sounds like they're using machine learning models to tackle marketing spam, maybe even phishing attempts?
Precisely. If they can actually offer genuinely superior anti-spam, better security features, that's a massive value proposition. Email security, inbox clutter, everyone hates that, right? Plus, by making it part of the OES, the theory is simple. Your OMail calendar automatically syncs with OConnect for meetings, with ODesk for CRM. No need for third-party APIs, no Zapier needed. It's an ambitious play, definitely, tackling a really fundamental service.
Okay, moving on, we've got ONET. That's their social networking piece.
ONET is strategically very important for them. It's designed for connections, yeah, but also professional groups, community building, even marketplace features, plus built-in post-scheduling. It's their attempt to capture that organic social and professional activity you see.
And the strategy here seems pretty clear. Volume, right? The sources really emphasize the free usage to drive adoption fast. It's a classic platform growth move. Build the network effect before you start charging enterprise users for the other tools.
Absolutely. They need that user base. If ONET hits critical mass, suddenly becomes this powerful built-in marketing channel for all their paid tools like ODesk or OTracker. The challenge, obviously, is huge. They're up against LinkedIn, Facebook giants with near total saturation. To succeed, ONET needs something genuinely compelling, something different, maybe tighter privacy, better tools specifically for business networking. Hard to say yet.
Next on the list is OTrim. This one's a utility solution, a link shortener, basically. URL trimming, making long links short and manageable.
Yeah. OTrim seems small, almost trivial, but actually it shows they're thinking about the basic plumbing of the internet, the stuff you only notice when it breaks. If you're building a massive marketing and analytics ecosystem, you need a reliable link shortener, one that works perfectly with your web analytics tool, OTracker, to track clicks accurately. So it kind of confirms they're trying to be this comprehensive utility, not just flashy apps. It's a necessary bit of digital infrastructure for their larger plan.
Right. And finally, in the current lineup, there's OConnect. This is their collaboration platform, their answer to Zoom, to Microsoft Teams.
OConnect is maybe the most immediately scrutinized one because video conferencing collaboration, the standards are incredibly high now. Everyone knows what good looks like. It includes, the basics, video, audio calls, file sharing, real-time collaboration. But what supposedly sets it apart, according to their claims, is that potential for advanced AI features.
Okay, let's dig into that potential. What specific AI features are we talking about here? Things that go beyond just showing video.
Well, the sources mention AI-assisted translation and speech-to-text. That's huge for global business, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being in a meeting, two languages spoken, and the platform gives you real-time, accurate translation overlays, or just a perfect transcript afterwards. Plus, the OES integration suggests more. OConnect meetings could automatically generate summary notes that flow straight into an Odesk CRM ticket. Or the system could use OTracker data to analyze, say, engagement levels during the call.
That is the ultimate integration promise, yeah. But look, to even compete with Zoom, OConnect needs more than just cool features. It needs absolutely bulletproof performance, low latency, high resolution, proper security certs for corporate use, especially for big meetings. That takes serious server infrastructure, serious optimization.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And this specific initial suite email, social conferencing, a basic utility, tells you that their immediate strategy is aggressive. Very aggressive. They're not launching niche tools first. They're going straight for the fundamental high-competition services every single business relies on daily. They're positioning themselves to just rip out a company's existing fragmented stack and replace it with their unified solution. But success, it hinges entirely on execution quality. Is OConnect really as reliable as Zoom? Is OMail as smart and secure as Gmail? That's the test.
Okay, this is where the ambition really kicks into high gear and where it gets, frankly, really interesting for you, the listener. If the current products are the foundation, then the stuff announced is coming soon. Well, that represents the vault of potential high value, but also the highest technical risk and regulatory risk, too. This is the strategic pivot point. They're basically signaling a move from competing with, say, Zoom and Gmail to potentially competing with AWS, Salesforce, Stripe, Shopify, all at the same time.
That pivot is absolutely key. The roadmap shows their strategic intent, right? Moving fast from basic communication tools to complex, high-value enterprise services, and these upcoming tools, they demand way more technical maturity. They involve much higher regulatory hurdles. This is really where the rubber hits the road for them. Let's start with what sources suggest is one of the earliest upcoming launches. It may be one of those critical for the entire ecosystem security. Overify, their identity verification platform. This is designed as a robust Know Your Customer platform.yc.
Right, KYC. This is a high-stakes tool. Identity verification isn't just a nice-to-have feature. It's a legal necessity in many industries.
Precisely. And the tech behind it, according to the sources, sounds advanced. They talk about facial detection, OCR, optical character recognition, and claim really high accuracy rates. The value proposition here is massive and global. Think financial services onboarding, compliance checks, fighting fraud. If they actually build a reliable, secure KYC platform, it could potentially be adopted way beyond just the OES users.
Okay, wait, let's pause right there. Because the critique you mentioned earlier pointed out quite rightly that we might be understating just how hard it is to build a globally compliant KYC platform. What makes this exponentially harder than, say, building OMail?
The difficulty is all about compliance and security. They are absolutely non-negotiable here. KYC platforms handle the most sensitive data imaginable: passports, driver's licenses, biometric scans like facial data. Building this means dealing with incredibly high-stakes security. It means regional database lookups. Is this person legally allowed to operate here? And critically, strict data localization laws. GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, others elsewhere. Data can't just live anywhere. It needs specific regional storage. This requires a completely different level of regulatory approval, a different technical architecture compared to a standard SaaS app. Now, they claim built-in data retention policies, privacy measures, which shows they understand the challenge. But executing that perfectly, globally, monumental task.
Okay. Moving from identity to data. Next up is OTracker, positioned as the ultimate web analytics solution.
Yeah, every digital business needs to know what users are doing right. And more importantly, why they're doing it. OTracker's core functions sound standard but essential. Monitoring traffic, user behavior, conversions, obviously relevant for digital marketing, website optimization. But here's the challenge. It has to compete directly with Google Analytics, which is free and has enormous network effects.
So if OnPassive plans to charge for OTracker or bundle it somehow, what does it absolutely have to offer that Google doesn't?
It has to overcome Google's massive advantage.
Yeah.
OTracker probably needs superior privacy features, maybe cookieless tracking options, deep customization that Google often reserves for expensive enterprise tiers. But maybe more importantly, its integration with Odesk and Omail needs to be flawless, truly seamless. Imagine OTracker showing you not just that a user converted, but linking it directly to the specific Omail campaign they received and showing the exact support ticket history in Odesk that preceded the conversion. All in one view. That's the kind of deep, integrated insight they'd need to offer to tempt people away from existing solutions.
Makes sense. Next, the organizational tools. Starting with Odesk, their customer relationship management tool, CRM.
Odesk is positioned as the business engine, really,
Mhm.
focusing on lead tracking, managing customer interactions, support tickets, maybe automated responses. A solid CRM helps businesses manage their sales pipeline, improve service quality. It centralizes interactions. Its success, again, hinges heavily on integrating perfectly with Omail and OConnect, automatically capturing every single interaction without manual input.
And for internal teamwork beyond OConnect, they're planning Opal, described as an AI-driven tool for team communication, file sharing, discussions.
Opal looks like it's aiming to compete with the giants, Slack, or Microsoft Teams. The differentiation has to be those promised AI features. We're talking about AI potentially monitoring discussions to automatically identify and assign action items, or maybe summarizing really long, complex chat threads across different channels. It targets that persistent problem of remote teams needing efficient, centralized, and ideally intelligent communication.
Okay. And finally, in this sort of near-term strategic launch group, sources mention Obless, their philanthropic platform.
Yeah, reports suggest Obless is designed for social causes, donations, maybe funding startups, basically a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding platform. This seems like it serves two strategic aims. One, building some positive corporate branding. Two, providing a legitimate, regulated platform for handling funds and payments, which, interestingly, could pave the way for their O-wallet system later.
Right. And beyond these near-term launches, the future scope gets incredibly broad. You mentioned competing with AWS, Stripe. What other specialized tools complete this, frankly, daunting full-stack picture?
I mean, the full list reads like a tech company wish list. Sources mention O-wallet for payments and holding digital value. That's a massive undertaking, global financial compliance, security clearance. Then O-virtual for VPN and security tools. O-domain for website hosting and registration. O-shop as a full e-commerce platform aimed squarely at Shopify. And even Odit for social media graphics and image generation.
Wait, hang on, let me get this straight. They're building a payment system, O-wallet, an identity system, Overfyway, an e-commerce platform, O-shop, and a marketing suite, O-tracker, all basically at the same time. Is there any historical precedent for a company successfully launching this many complex, regulated software systems and infrastructure components at this kind of speed?
That is the absolute core skepticism, isn't it? And it's exactly why the sources we look at are so divided. Successfully building just one of these, like a payments platform, requires PCI compliance, global regulatory licenses, infrastructure stability that rivals major banks. E-commerce platforms need massive scalability, complex inventory management, fulfillment integrations. Now, if they deliver all this, these tools transform the ONPASSIVE ecosystem from just a promising set of business tools into a completely self-contained digital operating environment. The ambition is, well, it's breathtaking, but the execution risk, it's directly proportional to that ambition. It's huge. Okay, so we've laid out the ambitious vision, the incredibly broad roadmap. Now, we absolutely must pivot to the necessary reality check. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of that roadmap, right? But our job here is to ask the tough questions. Does this ambition actually align with the reality of their execution so far? And what are the inherent risks? We need to look really clearly at both the claimed differentiators and the pretty significant warnings that came up in the source material.
Right. Let's start by reinforcing those key differentiators that OnPassive promises. The things they believe justify this massive effort and set them apart from the established giants. Number one, heavy AI integration. This is their core promise, really. But what specific applications of AI would make their tools genuinely superior?
Yeah, it needs to be more than just, generic speech-to-text or basic automation. The high-value promise seems to revolve around cross-platform automated insights. So, for example, the AI in OConnect shouldn't just translate the meeting. It should talk to OTracker to analyze the conversion rates of the specific leads discussed in that meeting. See the connection? It's about using AI-driven avatars for marketing automation, maybe, coupled with automated insights feeding directly into Odesk, perhaps providing prescriptive actions, not just raw data dump. The idea is the AI must be woven into the fabric of every application, making them inherently smarter than standard SaaS tools where you have to bolt on separate AI tools yourself.
Okay. Number two, that seamless ecosystem OES integration we talked about earlier, the promise of zero friction between tools.
Convenience is a massive driver, especially for small and medium businesses. They struggle constantly with integrating different software vendors. It often means hiring expensive IT consultants. So the promise here is true unity, eliminating the need for complex, costly API bridges, simply because, theoretically, all the tools share that single foundational database architecture.
Third, their accessibility model. That seems quite strategic, offering low or even free access for foundational products like ONET or OMail. The goal is clearly to accelerate user adoption fast, get that critical mass they need so they can then monetize the more complex, high-value enterprise tools like Overfi and Odesk later.
And finally, there's that consistent emphasis on compliance and security focus. This seems particularly critical for OverFi, the identity tool. They clearly recognize that privacy, robust identity management, these are crucial selling points now, especially post-GDPR. Their goal seems to be marketing themselves not just as easy to use, but as inherently more secure and compliant because of that unified architecture.
Okay, now for the other side of the coin, the necessary critical view. Because these massive ambitions, they don't come without some significant red flags based on the source material we reviewed. What specific caution points should you, the listener, keep front of mind when evaluating this whole thing?
Well, the most immediate, most tangible issue that keeps coming up is the launch consistency issue. There are multiple reports from users, from media sources, pointing to repeated significant product launch delays, and that notorious launch any day now messaging that seems to have been a recurring theme over time.
That sounds like a major blow to credibility. If the execution pipeline is consistently inconsistent, how does that erode trust?
Oh, it's a huge problem, especially when you're asking customers to ditch tools they already rely on, tools that work. Repeatedly missing deadlines suggests one of two things, really. Either the technical challenges of building this integrated suite are genuinely far more complex than they anticipated, which, given the scale, is actually plausible, or their internal management, their delivery processes, they just aren't robust enough yet for enterprise-grade deployment. Actual, consistent delivery, it's paramount. You need it to maintain user trust, partner trust, and to avoid that perception that the whole thing is just selling a vision, vaporware.
Okay, second point. And this one is potentially the most damaging to their credibility. The issue of regulatory scrutiny. This is where we need to tread carefully, but the sources mention SEC filings, claims suggesting the business model might resemble a pyramid scheme.
Right, and here we need to make a crucial impartial distinction for the listener. We're analyzing the products, OMail, OConnect, etc., which might be perfectly functional software. However, the regulatory scrutiny seems centered on the corporate structure, the way the company raises capital, the way it recruits participants, especially concerning those early adopters or founders. The allegations don't necessarily question if the software exists or works. They question the sustainability and the legitimacy of the income model used to finance the whole operation.
So the concern isn't necessarily whether OMail works as an email client, but whether the money used to pay the developers and market the products comes primarily from actual sales of enterprise services, or if it comes mainly from recruitment fees, which is the hallmark of a pyramid or certain MLM structures.
It's exactly that. The SEC, other regulators, they look very closely at whether the compensation plan is tied mostly to recruiting new people rather than selling genuine products or services to end consumers. This legal shadow, regardless of how it ultimately plays out, it casts significant doubt on the financial sustainability, the overall legitimacy of the non-product side of the business. Any potential enterprise user, any partner, they absolutely must investigate the corporate structure, the regulatory status in their own specific region, because this risk complicates everything from getting banking partners to landing large corporate contracts.
Okay, moving back to the technical side then, there's the product maturity and quality issue. Sources indicate that even for the products reportedly released, actual performance, reliability, user satisfaction, it's just less well documented publicly compared to established alternatives.
Yeah, and that's often the case with rapid development cycles, isn't it? We have to ask. Are the claimed features, especially the complex AI stuff in OConnect or OMail, are they fully functional? Are they robust, secure? Particularly when you try to scale them up. Launching an initial version of V1 is relatively easy. Maintaining enterprise-grade quality, reliability for millions of users globally, that's the real test of a company aiming this high. Sources seem to suggest that while the foundations might be there, the quality control needed for mass enterprise adoption is still, well, a major question mark.
And finally, sources point to pervasive transparency concerns, a claimed lack of clarity around core operational details, like where are the data centers located, who specifically develops the software, how rigorous is the security testing.
And for an ecosystem that heavily promotes high security, compliance, identity verification, think Overify again, that lack of openness is a significant concern. Regulated industries like banking or healthcare, they demand full visibility into the security chain, into data residency. If a potential banking client can't get clear answers on where their customer data is physically stored or who wrote the core code, it becomes almost impossible for them to sign a high-value contract. This lack of transparency, fairly or unfairly, just feeds the skepticism that's already fueled by the regulatory issues.
Okay, let's try to pull this together now with a more strategic view. We can frame the whole opportunity and threat landscape using a classic SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This should help you, the listener, really assess the company's current path and frame your own perspective on where it might be heading.
Yeah, breaking down that strategic view based on the source material is really essential for understanding where ONPASSIVE could realistically go in the next, say, couple of years. Let's start with the strengths. Yes. The key strength, undoubtedly, remains that ambitious all-in-one ecosystem concept, the OBS. That architecture, if successful, genuinely offers seamless integration, potentially lower long-term costs than juggling dozens of different vendors. They're also strongly aligned with that huge global demand for AI and automation. That's a tailwind. And critically, those free or low-cost entry points, ONET, OMail, they're a powerful magnet. They could potentially drive really rapid user adoption, especially in emerging markets where expensive Western SaaS platforms are often out of reach.
Okay, but then the flip side. The weaknesses, W, and they are significant and immediate. There's that very high risk of overpromising and underdelivering, just given the sheer scale of the roadmap. It's massive. There's also real ambiguity about the actual robustness, the revolutionary nature of the AI features. Are they deep integrated capabilities or more like superficial additions? Hard to tell from the outside. The revenue model itself seems complex, heavily dependent on converting all those free users into paying customers for the enterprise tools. That's a tough conversion. And of course, those ongoing legal and regulatory challenges, especially the SEC case we discussed, that acts as a fundamental drag on their credibility and inevitably slows down enterprise adoption.
Now, looking at opportunities. The market itself is undeniably ripe for disruption. There's growing global demand for better remote work tools, for secure digital identity solutions, for integrated software stacks that just work. If they execute successfully, they have the potential to fill technology gaps really quickly in underserved markets around the world. Think parts of Asia, Africa, Latin America, places where established, expensive platforms haven't penetrated as deeply or localized well. And structurally, they have the potential ability to scale their platform across loads of different sectors, e-commerce, finance, education, just because their product suite aims to be so broad.
But the threats are equally powerful, right?
Yeah.
And they need serious consideration. They face incredibly fierce competition from established, deeply entrenched players: Microsoft, Google, Zoom, Salesforce. These guys not only have vast user bases and deep, deep pockets, but also complex competitive moats.
Let's dig into that thread a bit more. Take Microsoft, for example. Their Office 365 licensing strategy, their existing integration with Windows, with Azure that creates massive ecosystem lock-in for businesses. For a newcomer like ONPASSIVE to break in, they have to convince a CTO to rip out core infrastructure that, for the most part, already works pretty well. That's a hard sell. Google, on the other hand, offers fantastic core services like Analytics and Gmail completely free, making it incredibly difficult for any paid or subscription competitor to justify the cost difference, especially for smaller businesses. They are fighting against deeply entrenched network effects.
Beyond just the direct competition, what other major threats exist?
Well, that persistent threat of severe legal and regulatory crackdowns just can't be ignored. If regulators globally decide their income structure is non-compliant, it could halt key operations, freeze assets, maybe irrevocably damage user trust. Also, managing this much user data, especially highly sensitive identity data in OVERify, that creates an extremely high risk of major security breaches or data privacy failures. A single serious breach could be utterly catastrophic because of that unified architecture promise. If one part fails, the whole digital city is potentially exposed. And finally, user skepticism, just fueled by past launch issues and the regulatory noise. That's a constant threat to adoption rates.
Okay, so given this really intense strategic environment, huge potential, massive risks, what does this all mean for the immediate future? Let's maybe consider two distinct scenarios for the next, say, 1, 2 years, just to help you frame your perspective.
Yeah, the scenarios really hinge on whether they can effectively overcome those weaknesses we talked about, W, and truly capitalize on the opportunities every.
All right, so the best case scenario, what does that look like? We'd see a consistent, reliable execution pipeline emerge. OnPassive successfully delivers multiple reliable, genuinely functional, scalable products, especially the high-value ones like Overify and OTracker. They gain critical user adoption, maybe proving their model works in those emerging markets first, hitting verifiable user numbers, millions perhaps. They manage to build a credible reputation. They successfully defend themselves against or adequately address the legal and regulatory issues. Their analytics and identity tools become seen as genuinely competitive alternatives. And critically, in this best case, they successfully convert a significant chunk of those free users into paying subscribers for the full OES suite, establishing a clear, sustainable revenue stream that's directly tied to product value, not just recruitment.
Okay, now for the worst case scenario. This is really defined by a failure to execute, coupled with escalating reputational damage. We'd see continued delays. Released products are found to be underperforming, buggy, maybe technically shallow, essentially existing as glorified vaporware that just can't handle real-world scale. Legal and regulatory issues escalate, perhaps resulting in significant fines or operational restrictions, eroding user trust to a point where it's impossible to recover. They fail technically to compete. The feature set, the reliability just doesn't match up to what Microsoft, Google, Zoom offer. Poor product quality, or maybe the promised integration just doesn't materialize, leading to mass churn among those early curious users. In this scenario, the free usage just drives up operational costs without generating the necessary revenue conversion, leading to a fundamentally unsustainable business model, regardless of whether OMail itself actually works okay. So if you're the learner listening to this, maybe consider involvement perhaps as a user or potential partner or just someone keeping an eye on this space. Our analysis really suggests that caution, combined with rigorous, independent testing, are probably your most valuable tools right now. The potential reward, that massive integration efficiency, it's undeniably attractive. But the risks, they are substantial.
Right. So your key monitor points, the things you should be watching closely are, first, look for consistent delivery. Compare actual launch dates to promise dates. Look for verified third-party reviews, not just the company's own announcements. Second, pay very close attention to post-launch user reviews. Verifiable third-party feedback. Is the software actually reliable in the real world? Third, you absolutely must monitor regulatory developments, particularly in your own region. Watch their corporate status, the income model scrutiny. These will impact the company's long-term viability, its financial security. And fourth, do a direct feature-by-feature comparison. Pit their tools against established alternatives. Look at core features, cost, long-term reliability.
Yeah, we definitely recommend proceeding with caution. The ambition here, creating this unified AI-integrated digital ecosystem, it's enormous. The potential value is huge. However, that regulatory baggage and the absolute need to verify technical quality under real load, those factors just cannot be overstated. Test the currently released products yourself. Get your hands on OMail, OConnect, verify the functionality they claim, and always compare the claimed value against existing solutions in your specific context.
Ultimately, it comes down to you weighing that risk-reward ratio for your own specific needs, doesn't it? Does the promise of that seamless integration, the potential cost savings from ditching multiple vendors, does that save you enough time and money to actually outweigh the known risks associated with the company's non-product side, the regulatory side?
And that really leads us to a final provocative thought for you to consider as you watch this unfold. And it's a big if OnPassive somehow successfully manages to deliver a truly frictionless, integrated ecosystem, where identity, analytics, communication are genuinely and powerfully linked by AI. Does the sheer convenience, the simplicity, the potential cost effectiveness of that single source environment, does it fundamentally change how businesses calculate risk? Is that level of seamless integration worth taking a leap of faith? Or should the history of execution failures and those persistent regulatory shadows always dictate caution when you're evaluating technology partners? Something to think about as this ecosystem continues to develop.